Concluded today in Ufa, Russia, with commitments from member states that they'll do more to advance the group's interests globally. This as partners, including South Africa, seek to ramp up intra-trade, as evidenced by the establishment of the new development bank. Our own Liabo Setho, my colleague, joins us from Russia again. Liabo, please give us a wrap-up of this very crucial summit this time in Russia.
Good evening, Francis. Well, it is done. BRICS, the 7th BRICS Summit is finally concluded here in Ufa, Russia. And perhaps the most salient point that I can say stood out for me is that the new development bank is finally established and it's operational. And the other important part is that the first regional section of the bank is going to be established in South Africa. And we know how important the establishment of the bank is in the context, firstly, locally of South Africa. We heard yesterday that the acting CEO of the state utility, Eskom, has mentioned that they probably will be going to this new development bank to ask for funding. There's a lot of things that were signed, a lot of agreements that have been signed regarding with nuclear, regarding energy, regarding the bank itself. A whole lot of things have been signed. It looks like BRICS is moving ahead. We are moving ahead as BRICS, and it seems like there's no stopping it, Francis. But another point, important part, is that our presidential correspondent, or our presidential team, has joined us today on Business Review. Mzwandile Mbeje is with me, and he was covering the political part of everything, and he will tell us what stood out for me. Mzwai, thank you for joining us. What stood out for you in the political space?
Thank you very much, Liabo. As you have indicated, you know, politics and economy go hand in hand. And when you want to get your projects off the ground, you need political commitment from the leadership. Because without any commitment, especially political commitment, you can talk as much as you like, but nothing will happen. One of the things that really stood out for me here was that you could see the leaders of the 5 countries saying, we wanted this thing to happen, and then the fact that we have been able to establish a bank shows that there's political commitment. You mentioned the agreements as well. These are very diverse countries, Latin America, Asia, Africa, Europe. So they've also established a memorandum of understanding to make sure that they create a website, a website which will give someone in Brazil a chance to know what are the Russians thinking, or the Chinese. And another thing, the agreement on arts and culture. We should understand each other's culture. So for me, that is part of political commitment, because if we decide to do something together and then we don't understand each other, somewhere along the lines we'll misunderstand each other. So those are the things that really stood out. And they've actually agreed that at a global stage or at a multilateral level, they should coordinate their efforts. For example, at the G20, so they must speak with one voice there on many issues. And then the issue of UN. And this grouping actually is very important, because it actually has 2 members of the Security Council. Yes. And then these other 3, we know they're really vocal in saying UN must be reformed. And of course, we can assume that should it be reformed, those regions that are talking may actually be represented.
Here's another thing that I thought that also stood out with regards to the summit, the issue that they want to implement a new visa regime. This will make sure that businesses, they have free reign to these to the member countries, and this will facilitate business. This will also help with the political strengthening with the 2 countries. What's your view on that?
In fact, one thing that is very interesting is that in this aspect, South Africa is a leader. South Africa is basically saying we have already started the process of making sure that we ease the visa regulations relating to this, because it's pointless to talk about increasing business activity and between these countries when there are still obstacles, because once you still have those obstacles, so you will not be able to achieve what you're doing. Already we are seeing the very positive trends. The trade has really increased among these countries. And then given that they're also looking at that issue that they must increase or they must relax their visa regulations, it's definitely going to contribute positively in my view.
Well, Francis, as you have heard, my colleague has mentioned all the salient points that stood out for him politically. I've also mentioned to you what has stood out for me economically, particularly the development of the operational development of the bank, the visa regulations, and to top it up, to have the political backing to make sure that everything goes ahead. Next year, the summit goes to India. We will see what will be progressed in India, how far we would have come after this summit, and we'll see where BRICS goes to, but it looks like BRICS is poised for growth.
Thank you very much, Liabo and Mazwai, reporting from Ufa, Russia, the conclusion of the BRICS Summit there. And the world is watching this development bank, very important for infrastructural projects in Africa. There's a huge funding gap. And the question now is, could Eskom's financial work